Matt Goodwin's on page 10 today, telling the Prime Minister he needs to get radical with migrant policy because it really has reached a crisis point now, hasn't it? I mean, we've got Yvette Cooper not giving us any updates, despite promising to give us an update regularly about the numbers of people detained. I see the Home Office has put out a new deportation video, which we can play you, but it's no different really from the one they put out about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it uses all the same numbers as it did before.
Yeah, I think
Just going to show you the video now. Sorry. So basically, the same 3 guys getting out of the same van with the same 3 blue plastic bags carrying the same belongings, using the same figure of 35,000. When we know from last week that they deported 2,330 people who had come here on small boats, and the rest were all volunteers.
Yeah, and I think what we need to do is that the government needs to get those numbers up. I think you look at the big part of that 35,000. If you dig into those, the vast majority will be foreign national offenders, those who've committed crimes here, who are then sent back. What the government really need to do, it's abundantly obvious, is get those huge numbers that are coming over in small boats and getting those sent back. And Matt Goodwin, in his piece in The Sun today on page 10, makes it abundantly clear that the government, what they are doing, they're not radical enough. They need to certainly up their game. And what they need to do is leave the European Convention of Human Rights, or at least suspend it, and actually not be bound by judges in Strasbourg about our policy when it comes to deporting and getting rid of migrants. That seems to be one of the few ways of actually getting radical enough to actually make sure they don't stay in this country.
Yeah, the problem is, of course, that as the Labour Party and the government kept telling us for the last year, you can't deport people to countries with whom you have no agreement. I mean, even David Blunkett today in the Times is saying, you know, time to leave the ECHR, time to leave the UN Convention on Human Rights. You know, he's a former, you know, sort of what you might call titan of the Tony Blair government.
Yeah, that's right. You had obviously the ex-Home Secretary there, David Blunkett, talking about it. Last week, you had current Labour MP Graham Stringer talking about this as well. And it seems like the government, as Matt Goodwin says there in his piece, tinkering around the edges. We had big noises from the government, how they're going to get rid of this tier 1 system, or sort of reform it to try and speed up the process on asylum applications. But is it really going to be enough? Because if you're still part of that European Convention of Human Rights, you're still going to have the lawyers, and you're still going to have the migrants actually fighting their case. Unless you actually leave, there's not very much you can do. You're still going to be held up. Cases are still going to be held up in the courts. So that's why it needs this radical action. And I think there was some sums done over the weekend that by the time we get to the next election, you can expect 180,000 migrants to have crossed the channel in small boats. If you don't have that deterrent, people are just going to come. It's as simple as that. And it's going to be interesting to see as we head towards party conference season. We've got the Reform Conference coming up at the beginning of September. Let's see, obviously, Nigel Farage is going to be making sort of big noises this week on the issue. Kerry Badenoch is probably going to be talking about movement towards leaving the European Convention of Human Rights. It's going to leave Labour in a very, very sticky position if they're still the ones saying, oh, it'll be okay on the night. It's all right, just tinker around the edges. They're going to be left with massive political problems.
And that, of course, leads you back to the problem that they have in general, which is that they have to move a bit to the right to help make them look better in front of the electorate. Every time they do that, it makes them look worse in front of their own party, who then have more backbenchers who want to rebel against everything they do.
Yeah, I think if Sir Keir Starmer wants to get really serious about this, he has to talk to the right, he has to act to the right. And if those people in his party, those people who are supporters of his party, kick off a little bit, he just has to, or in this case, almost just ignore them.
Yeah.
He has to tackle it head on, and by sort of listening to those, you know, maybe in his parliamentary party who are a little bit queasy about this, he just has to ride roughshod over
Indeed.
it.
I mean, can he do that? Does he need a vote in the House of Commons to leave the UN Refugee Council, or indeed to leave the ECHR?
I think when it comes to overseas conventions, treaties, there is normally some kind of parliamentary sort of mechanism to leave, but ultimately it's up to the Prime Minister whether we sign or whether we leave these treaties. But I think just going through the motions, he'll have to put something before Parliament.
Yeah, interesting. That's the thing that he's got a problem with, though, because if he then ignores the backbenchers, they vote against it and he doesn't get it through, and then he's really stuck. The Sun this morning in the leader page as well, calling for visa sanctions to be imposed on uncooperative nations who are kind of dragging their feet a little bit when it comes to accepting some of these migrants back. They've got Egypt, Lebanon, Guinea and Burkina Faso, according to the Sun, should cooperate. And if they don't, put sanctions on them.
Yeah, no, exactly. And going back just a few years, I remember Priti Patel, when she was Home Secretary, she was talking about this and acting on this. Several countries who didn't comply with migrant rules and actually signing up to sort of those bilateral deals, or we could send the foreign national offenders, or we could send those coming here on small boats back to their own country. If they don't comply with that, it's very simple. The number of visas that you'll be allocated to people who want to come here legally will be cut. And I think that's the kind of message that you have to send to embassies and other governments around the world, that the harsh reality of it, we have a problem in this country and we have to act, and we have to act fast.
Yeah. One final one for you, Angela Rayner. I'm going to do the letters page in a minute of The Sun, which is all about Angela Rayner. Martina Bett, your colleague at The Sun, had put a story out this morning, just a few moments ago, saying that Angela Rayner's office has admitted that she pays full council tax in her house in Ashton-under-Lyne, and the second home premium on the new flat that we've discovered near Brighton, in Hove, in fact. So she's building up quite a nice little property portfolio there.
Yeah, and I think one of the attacks that the Conservatives and the Reform were pushing over the weekend is for her to come clean over her living arrangements, which is her primary residence, because of course she's got that grace and favour property where she lives in central London. And I think there was an issue over how much council tax she could pay. Was it her primary residence? Was it a secondary residence? Because that alters the amount that she actually pays in council tax. But as you say, two properties that, you know, the family home up in the constituency, the new property that she's bought down in Brighton, and the grace and favour issue. I think one of the issues with this, you had one of her sort of deputies in her department, Matthew Pennycook, talking about whether people should be sort of buying these second homes, and other issues about how difficult it is to actually get onto the property ladder. It's just not a particularly great look if you are trying to get people onto the property ladder, how difficult it is, how much money people have to save. But you, and the optics of you living in three homes, having the option of choosing whether you're staying in your first, second or third property that night, it just doesn't look great.
No, it really doesn't.